Hi, I hope you're doing well today. This is going to be an illustration technique of how to draw the human face in profile. A couple things to just keep in mind when you draw in profile and when you draw the human face just in general, even if you're doing three-quarter shot or straight on, is that you always want to remember the rule of halves. And the rule of halves is essentially the best way to break down the proportions of the human head so that you make sure that you get everything kind of in the right place. One of the most important things is that proportion, making sure that things belong where they belong, and it'll make your picture look a lot more realistic just very easily, even if you add cartoon or symbolistic sort of images or aspects of it. So I always start off with a very rough oval. You'll see I'm not drawing very dark, even though I have my nice dark pencil here to use. I'm leaving it very, very light. Most of this circle is not going to be used. It's going to be just kind of our frame or our structure. You can kind of think of it as sort of a template for it. Right there, I'm laying in the rule of halves, a halfway vertical line and a halfway horizontal line, basically just dividing it into 4 quarters. One of these quarters I'm actually going to turn into a square. So I already have the 2 sides of the square, and I'm actually just adding the other sides of the square. Now to create my nose, I'm going halfway between the eye line and where my chin is. You can see it's a little hard on this video. I'm still mastering the wonders of this, but you can see me laying that nose line out, and then halfway between the nose and the chin, I'm actually going to put in my mouth line. And these are just basic rough lines. I'm just setting them up to be there and ready for me to put my details in. Halfway between the top of the head and my eye line is going to be my hairline. And basically I'm just breaking this down with the rule of halves, as I would on a normal face on the front view, but from the side. Now I'm making a little indent for where the top of our nose begins, and then I'm going to bring my nose down. I think looking back at this in retrospect, I think my nose might be a little too large for this particular figure, this face. It definitely doesn't match my large nose, but I can fix that pretty much the next time I draw. Now, I want to put in my eye, so basically I'm going to measure halfway between there and kind of just figure out where that halfway point is. And that's a good place to sort of rest my eye to have it ready to be drawn and placed in. And I kind of think about my old math classes with the greater than and less than symbol, because that's essentially what I'm putting in with a little curve connecting them to create our eye from the side view. Now I'm just bringing in the forehead, putting in a couple extra details for it there. For my eyebrow, just like everything else that I do with hair, I draw it as a basic shape and then add texture to it afterwards. It makes it a little bit nicer to have that laid out, basically to figure out where it's going to be, and then I can just go back in there and put the texture. I'm putting the iris and the pupil in, just to make it as realistic and as nice as possible for that picture. Now to create my mouth, I always turn the paper sideways. Some people might remember my story of the bird for when I draw the mouth. There was this great bird, and he went out and caught a giant fish, and when he brought that fish back home, they crowned him king of the birds. So I put a little fish below, a little crown above, and then just connect those lines, and I have a pretty symbolic but simplistic mouth to use. For the side view, I do basically the same idea with just a little bit more swooping wings. Imagine that bird is just about to take off, just about to launch off. And I put those designs in pretty easily. Now for the mouth line, you can make it smiling, frowning, just straight face, but I want to have it come back to just about where the eye starts. It's sort of the way for me to tell whether or not I've gone too far back or if it's just in that right spot. You can see already, we've already kind of went far off of that original circle, and that's really just there to help us out. I'm going to place my chin in here, and I like to do it a little bit from that side view and then just double check how it looks from the front. Looking back, it's a little slanted, maybe a little bit of too much of an edge there. For my ear, I always try to do the simplest way I can, and I learned this from a famous comic book artist, to do the question mark shape. You'll see the vertical halfway line that we drew way back when is sort of how I figure out where to put that ear. I know it's going to go a little bit behind that halfway line to make my good ear spot that good location. Our ear goes from the top of the eyebrow to the bottom of the nose. That's the perfect way to figure out how long it goes for. I'm going to place my hair in, always just like I said with the eyebrow, thinking of it as a shape, a larger shape, and then I'm going to fill it in with texture. And the one thing I forgot to do before I did my hair was add that little back of our head. And you can actually put your hand and feel the back of your head. That little bump on the back of your skull, we want to actually feature. This one I might have drawn it a little bit too large, but always got to practice to make myself perfect. Placing the hair down as an object, making sure to just kind of outline it as a big rough shape before I go in and put the texture. I learned from the same comic book artist who taught me about the ears, how to add that texture into the hair, and it saved me so much time. So imagine that we actually have a million hairs on our head. You don't want to draw a million lines. It's much easier to draw a shape and just add a little bit of extra detail to it. I hope you found this helpful. Please feel free to watch it as many times as you can, and I'm going to hopefully post some more up soon. Have a great day.